So if you want to find out all of the things I've changed in my makeup routine and how I created this look, just keep on watching. Okay, so I'm gonna start off by concealing my eyes, and it doesn't really matter if this gets messy because I'm putting on my foundation afterward, so it doesn't really matter if it gets messy because it will kind of like be blended out by my foundation. Anyway, so the first thing that I have changed up is I don't set my concealer for my eyes. I leave it wet, I leave it tacky. Now the reason why I don't set my concealer on my eyes anymore is because I just feel like my eyeshadow just adheres to the concealer a lot better because it's sticky, it's tacky. I'm using the Juvias Afrique palette and I'm using this yellow shade here, Aya, on a blending brush. Just a fluffy brush, and I'm just going to put this all over the top of the lid. I'm just going to stamp it on. See, this is such a bright yellow, but I'm trying to make it like super bright, so I may have to like layer this up a little bit. So I'm just going to keep on stamping. Now you're probably thinking like, why do I need to like do an updated, like my updated makeup routine? It's like some people like to know, and I feel like I have made quite a few changes, and I've realized that some of my changes are most definitely seasonal, and that's something that I have realized. Like, I wasn't aware of these things until I really thought about it. Like, that yellow came out so nice, and I thought, why not demonstrate these changes? Now I always do brows off camera. I think there's only really been a few times where I've done my brows on camera, and there really hasn't been any change to that, so we can just skip that part. I'm using the Zulu palette, and I'm going to be using this purple shade here. I'm going to be using this crease brush, and I'm going to stamp it on the edge and on the inner. Ooh, this is bright. Do you guys like bright looks, or do you prefer like more everyday, downplayed kind of looks? And that's just in general, like on yourself, on me, on other people. What do you prefer? And it's like, there's no right or wrong answer, because everybody's preferences are their own preferences, and I think everyone's allowed to have their opinions. Like I watch some, so I'm just using a clean blending brush so that I can blend out that edge. Like, I watch some makeup tutorials, some channels where they do nothing but everyday natural looks, and there's some other channels that I watch who just prefer to do more out there, more colourful, bright looks. But I think everybody's different, and I think a lot of the time to take into consideration is that everybody's lives are different. Like, there's some people who have to work a 9 to 5 like myself, and some workplaces are very, very strict. Like, my workplace is not strict. I can wear whatever kind of makeup I want to, because it's not really a customer facing job, so they don't really care what I wear. They don't even care whether or not I look presentable, to be fair. But obviously I do make the effort to look presentable. Ooh, that purple and the yellow, those have blended together at the edges really nicely. I'm just trying to get this bit here, which is a little bit patchy. I'm trying to get that to stick, and because obviously I've gone over it with so much shadow already, it hasn't got much to stick to. This is why I prefer to have a sticky base, so that this doesn't happen. Like, stamping is definitely key. I guess that's another thing that I've changed as well, especially when working with bright colors, is that stamping, if you want your eyeshadow to show up, stamping that eyeshadow is like really important, because I feel like doing windshield wipers with bright shades, you run the risk of it not really showing up. But if you stamp it on, it's like you're pushing the color in. Oh, that looks so good. I just love the way that that's blended out on the edges. That's so nice. Now going back in with that Afrique palette, I'm going to be using the shade Cotonou, this shimmery purple here. I'm picking that up on a flat brush. I'm just gonna spray, and I'm gonna go in right on the center of the lid. I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit, and then using that brush with the purple on it, I'm just going to use the remaining purple so that I can just blend the edges out nicely. Oh, that's so cute. Okay, so another thing that I have changed is I have gone back to primer. This is one of those seasonal things I was telling you about. So this was something that I was kind of like during the summer, I find that I don't wear primer because I feel like it's just too much on my skin. It's too heavy for my skin. But I didn't realize that it was seasonal. I kind of like just stopped wearing it when I felt like my skin just feels awfully like thick. It feels too heavy. My makeup feels heavy. So I'm gonna just drop out the primer. And when I thought about it, I was like, hold on, I did the exact same thing last year. But it wasn't like an intentional thing where it's like, oh, it's summer, let me stop wearing primer. And now that it's in the colder months, let me start wearing primer again. It was just, as the seasons change, so does my makeup and the way that I apply it. Something else that has changed as well is I put on a little bit of foundation on the areas that are like a little bit problematic. So I have like a spot scar right there, so I put a little bit of foundation there. This is the L'Oreal Infallible Stick Foundation. This is like my ride or die full coverage foundation, but this isn't going to be my main foundation. This is just to give a little bit of extra coverage to the areas that need it. Also, I've started to wear, like, instead of layering my foundation like I used to years ago, instead I make sure that I put a more generous application on my face, because I wasn't really wearing that much. And this will probably be a seasonal thing again, because again, this is like about how my skin feels heavy. So now that it's in the colder months, I feel like I can wear a little bit more, get a little bit more coverage without it feeling super duper heavy. So instead of layering my foundation like I used to way back when, I just kind of put a little bit extra so that I know that my face is fully covered. But I still use this brush though. That's not going to change anytime soon. Okay, so now that I've done my foundation, I'm going to go in and do my concealer. And a thing that has changed with that, let me just put this on, is when I'm blending it out and I use my blending sponge. Now this is dirty because I've used it a few times, but when I spritz it, I just let the water sit on top. Now the reason why the water is able to sit on top is because I have used it, so it's got like a layer of product on it. If it hadn't been used and it was clean, of course the water would have been soaked up. But I find that using the sponge with the water just sitting on top, the concealer and the water kind of like mix together, or the setting spray, they just kind of mix together, and I feel like it blends out so much better. And I don't know if it's just with this particular concealer or if it's with all concealers. I've only done it with this concealer, which is the Revolution Conceal and Define concealer. It's a concealer like a million times, but I just kind of feel like it just helps it to blend out so much better. And maybe the only reason why that works is because it makes it just a tad bit thinner, makes the concealer a tad bit thinner, so maybe that's why it blends out better. So maybe if I was to do this same thing with a thinner concealer, it could just end up being a mess, who knows. And I take a hell of a long time doing my under eyes. I try to get in every little crevice. supposed to do that, I don't know. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've done like my contour, my blush. I've also put on my winged liner and my mascara because there isn't any changes to those things. But one thing that has most definitely changed is the way that I apply my highlighter. Now before I would just apply it on a dry brush, but now what I tend to do is just spritz my brush just a little bit, because then it makes my highlight come out, oh this is so dirty, so much brighter. It's almost metallic looking. I just go over it with my powder brush so that it's not so pronounced in everybody's face. Right, so I've added some lashes. Now for those of you who know and watch me, you know that I don't really like wearing lashes, but I do every now and then wear false lashes, and I have been wearing them a little bit more often, especially for my YouTube tutorials and taking pictures and stuff like that. So I kind of am gradually, slowly going back into wearing false lashes. On top of that, the last thing that has changed is I do not wear setting spray anymore. This might be a seasonal thing as well, I'm not 100% sure yet, but what I've noticed recently, I think there was a few days last week where I had completely forgotten to put on setting spray, and when I had checked the mirror like 9-10 hours later, my makeup was looking like it was still there. That's not normal for me. Like, I find that my foundation tends to break down, it tends to just start rubbing off. But once I had stopped using the setting spray, I just found that my makeup was staying on for a lot longer. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like setting spray, it takes the powderiness away, it just makes everything melt in, it makes everything just come together. But I'm just finding that when I'm using it, my makeup just tends to break down a lot faster, and I would prefer for my oils to come through and kind of set it, not set it, but bring it together a little bit, make it look a little bit more natural, and keep my foundation on for a lot longer, rather than use a setting spray which somehow is breaking down my foundation. I don't know how it's working, I don't know how it's happening, but it is. I've tested it out for a little while, and then I went back to wearing it, and then it was like, no, it's definitely the setting spray, it's definitely that, because everything else stays the same. So I've stopped wearing the setting spray and my foundation is lasting a lot longer. So those are all the things that I have changed, and that goes from like over the span of a few years ago to very, very recent. So let me know if there's any things that you have changed. Let me know if these are any things that you do, and if you don't do them, are you going to try them out? Like, let me know. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.